Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Carricker and company.
Hi kids, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us. That's Andrew Rogers. I'm Randy Carricker, and his guy Yadi is back.
Yes, he is. Ooh. And I think that's why I was a catcher growing up, Randy, is because number 4 was the backstop for the Cardinals.
Oh, there you go. Hey, if you were the Blues, would you trade Robert Thomas? And Greg Amsinger of MLB Network will join us later in the show. But let's get things started with our quick hits. And the Cardinals announced that Yadi Molina is going to again return to the franchise as a special assistant to the president of baseball operations. Of course, he's had that role for the last 2 years. And under John Mozeliak, we saw him twice in that time. Now, Chaim Bloom says in the Cardinals statement, quote, Yadi will provide input on our catching program, will advise our staff on catching and game planning strategy, and will give me and our front office valuable perspective from his unique vantage point. Perhaps most important, he will help us nurture in our players the high standards, attention to detail, and championship mindset that are so crucial to winning. Are you buying that Yadi is even going to show up?
I am, and I think the timing is right now for Yadi with his son going off to college. I also understand the skepticism behind it for everything that you just laid out, but ultimately I just don't think that there's a downside to this move. Fans are absolutely thrilled that he's not going to be in somebody else's dugout or in somebody else's organization, and I think the players are too. Plus, you have to look at what the Cardinals have in their farm system, and they have many in the top 100 that are catching prospects. They have Jimmy Crooks, who they're trying to mold right now. Those guys are surrounding themselves with the greatest player.
What good does he do if he doesn't show up?
Well, he has to show up.
He never has shown up
He
before.
has to show up. I think I'm buying to that point.
Yeah, and the other part of it is, when you go back to people like Carson Kelly and Andrew Kisner, did they get better in St. Louis under Yadi Molina with his tutelage? No, they didn't. And apparently, he didn't even really talk to them about baseball and getting better. So he really does have to have a commitment that he's never had in the past.
Yeah, and I'm going to say because he's not playing now, you're going to see that because he always wanted to play. He never wanted to miss a game. So he didn't want Kisner to get obviously better and take his job because he wanted to be the best.
All right. Now, well, former Mizzou defensive end Damon Wilson has visited Miami with LSU and Texas Tech also in the hunt for his services. It appears that the Tigers are going to get a player back from the Hurricanes. Miami linebacker Malik Bryant entered the transfer portal with a do-not-contact tag, similar to what quarterback Austin Simmons did when he left Ole Miss for Mizzou. And on 3 reports that Bryant is headed to Columbia. Bryant was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school, but he's seen limited playing time, including just 4 games with 2 tackles this season. Mizzou isn't getting guys overall that have played a lot. Concern level about this roster, maybe talented guys, but not much experience?
Yeah, I think that's just the current tier that Mizzou is operating in the face of college football. And what I mean by that is until you become a consistent contender in the college football playoff, you're not going to get the guys that have logged a lot of minutes elsewhere. You're going to have to develop versus experience. But once they become a consistent contender, just look at what Indiana has done. They didn't have any 5-stars on their team. They had a bunch of 4-stars and had Fernando Mendoza, who played a little bit of time before at a smaller school. But now they're getting Josh Hoover, right? And so Mizzou can play in those same waters once they get into the top 12.
And once they get a booster. Indiana has Mark Cuban, right? The Texas Tech has Cody Campbell. There are other schools that get a lot more money, and I would guess that Mizzou probably gave most of their money to Simmons, and then they have to dole out, they have to allocate to the other players, and it's probably lesser than other programs have.
Am I wrong to say, Randy, that Mizzou should now go beg on their hands and knees to people that are worth more than Mark Cuban, even if we don't like those people?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Stan Kroenke?
Yes, that's what I'm talking
Bill
about.
Lowry? Yeah,
right.
I think so. At The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford and Shayna Goldman have a piece up about what the Blues could expect from a Robert Thomas trade. The problem is there are virtually no comparisons in trading a player like Thomas. While many teams can't find centers at all, Thomas is a legitimate number 1 who's 26 years old, who comes at a bargain price for 5 more years, and he's been better than a point-a-game producer for the last 2 seasons. The article suggests that a starting point would be a first-round pick, plus other high-end prospects or up-and-coming NHLers. An injured Jack Eichel netted Buffalo a first and a second, Alex Tuck and Peyton Krebs. Is there a team out there that would give up what it should take to get Thomas, and does it start with 2 first-rounders and a really good NHL player that's very young.
Yeah, very interesting point to bring up. I do think teams have what it takes, the resources to get a Robert Thomas. Like the Capitals, for example, they're trying to win again before Ovechkin is no longer in this league. So they might be willing to gut what they have in order to do that. I think the Flyers are interesting, the Bruins with Montgomery's connections and the prospects that he used to like. But teams need to realize exactly what you just said. I know Jack Eichel was a 36-goal scorer for the Buffalo Sabres, but Jack Eichel didn't have playoff experience in meaningful games, and that's what Robert Thomas does offer you, so he deserves the same price tag as Eichel got.
And there was a question about whether or not Eichel would ever play again. Buffalo traded him because he had to have neck surgery. They gambled on the neck surgery and won, but they didn't know if they were going to get a player that was able to play when they got Jack Eichel. This is really uncharted territory for the NHL, and I'd be really interested to see if somebody is interested in Thomas, what the offer would be. If I'm the Blues, I don't think they can get equal value for him.
Well, you at least need a roster player, a high-valued prospect, and a draft pick. All 3 of those teams have to be connected in a deal for Thomas.
And I think you need to get, based on what other centers have drawn, you have to get at least 4 assets back in return. In his latest bracketology, ESPN's Joe Lunardi not only has St. Louis University as a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament, but he has them playing here. NCAA games at Enterprise Center in the first 2 rounds. How incredible would that home court advantage be for the Bills? By the way, and we know there's a long way to go, Lunardi has SLU playing NC State in the first round here in St. Louis, and then the Purdue East Tennessee State winner in round 2. But man, could you imagine 19,000 Billiken fans being in there for the first round of the NCAA tournament?
I would venture to say that you might have standing room only that aren't Billikens fans, just fans of basketball in St. Louis that want to go out and support their team. And we know how important home games are. And I challenge you at home, if you don't think home games are important in college basketball, just go look at your favorite teams last 5 years. I bet they have more home wins than they do road wins. And that is a huge advantage for SLU, a team that needs every advantage that they can get come tournament time.
And it would be a stunner now if the Billikens didn't make the NCAA tournament. They're going to have some potholes. They could run into a pothole against St. Bonaventure. You don't know. But they're going to be in the tournament. Now, can they get to a 7 seed? They should win the A10. I think a 7 seed is very reasonable, and it would be really fun if the NCAA committee would install St. Louis University right here in St. Louis for the tournament.
And it would just enhance their watchability for people just across college basketball that think SLU is false and not as good as people say they are. And think about the Big East claim. Everybody wants SLU. I say everybody. There are a lot of people out there that want SLU to go to the Big East, right? Well, if they are a 7 seed and they win a tournament game, that is the best chance you have at getting to the Big East, knowing that you can play with those teams.
All right, MLB transactions. The Mets acquired front-of-the-rotation starter Freddie Peralta from the Brewers for 2 top prospects. Peralta won 17 games last year for the Brewers, and like before with Corbin Burns and Devin Williams, the Brewers generally don't let pitchers get to free agency. And after months of contentious negotiations, the Yankees, so we're talking Mets, we're talking Yankees, re-signed Cody Bellinger to a 5-year, $162.5 million contract. Reports indicated that Scott Boras wanted an 8-year deal for $400 million for Bellinger, but the Yankees stood firm. Bellinger does have opt-outs after years 2 and 3, but he's already 30 years old. He's used opt-outs to hit free agency twice before already in his career, and this was the Yankees' first big move of the offseason, so they could officially add Kyle Tucker to the 40-man roster. The Dodgers designated old friend Michael Ciani for assignment. Does the Yankee signing of Cody Bellinger signify a win over Scott Boras? The fact that they got him for $5 and $162.5 million.
I think it's a win for the Yankees for sure, because we don't normally see a Scott Boras client not get his way in the end. I also think it's really interesting what the Yankees are doing right now, because they are re-signing versus signing. They're comfortable running it back versus going out and getting the next big name available, which I think shows a shift in the Yankees' mindset as an organization. Meanwhile, the Mets, as you brought up, are a team that pivoted better than I think any team in baseball did when they didn't get the player they wanted.
And they're looking pretty good now. They've got Devin Williams in their bullpen. They've got former Cardinal Luke Weaver down in their pen. They've got 6 starters. Now they've got Cody Senga. They've got Sean Manaea. They've got a couple of their rookies from last year. They got Freddie Peralta to lead the charge. They also have now Bichette, They have Francisco Lindor. They have Marcus Semien. They have a pretty good-looking infield. Their outfield can use a little bit of help, but the Mets are going to be better than I thought they were going to be. Those are your quick hits here in the fight. And later in the show, you can participate with us in some risky business. We're going to put together a parlay for this weekend's NFL action, and we want you to join us in this parlay. Coming up, our old friend, MLB Network's Greg Amsinger, joins us here in the fight.
Now live with MLB Network host Greg Amsinger. Brought to you by St. Luke's. Experience healthcare the way it should be. Experience St. Luke's.
He is a grad of Lindenwood University. He is a product of St. Louis. He is a native St. Louis, and he's the lead anchor for MLB Network. Greg Amsinger doing great things for St. Louis, and he's right there here in the fight. Greg, it's always good to have you with us. How was your weekend in St. Louis?
I had a blast, an absolute blast, I got to tell you. I thank everybody that came out to Lindenwood University, the Shadiger Center, to take part in the very first ever Amsinger series. It was the State of the Cardinals, Chaim Bloom, Ali Marmol, so kind to join me on stage. We talked about a lot of different things, had a few laughs. And in case you missed it, Randy, how great was the Open?
It was
the open of the show was
insane.
awesome.
It was spectacular. It was Albert Pujols' birthday, and Greg had Albert on FaceTime so that all of us in the crowd could sing happy birthday to him. How did he like that, by the way?
He loved it. He absolutely loved it. He texted me afterwards. He actually sent me a screen grab of me spinning around with the crowd with all of you guys behind me. So his face was on the FaceTime. So I just wanted to give all the folks that came out a nice little gift, and singing happy birthday to Albert Pujols is a pretty cool, prize to go home with.
All right, Greg, you are at your office at MLB Network as we speak. We haven't talked about your new show. Bring us up to date on that.
Oh, Pack in Time?
Yeah.
It's a childhood dream of mine. So when I was a kid, it frustrated me so much that I had all these brothers, one of 6 boys, and then my mom and dad had a girl later, so 7 total kids. But all my brothers, they just didn't know enough about baseball that made me happy. And I knew everything about baseball. So I had a huge baseball card collection. I would make them study the back of the card, and then we would play this game where I would pull a card and you'd tell me everything you know about that random card. Then I'd pull a second card, tell me and I would be the judge. Okay, so my brothers would be competing against each other, and I would decide who knew the most. On the third card, whoever I pulled, you have to interview that player, a fake interview, but I would be the player. All right. So this was a way for them to pick up their baseball IQ. And I decided, you know what? I love baseball cards for so many different reasons, not just because of the baseball card industry that so many people enjoy monetarily, which I also enjoy. I have a show called Carded that is specifically about the industry of baseball card collecting. But this was more about why I fell in love with baseball cards. So this game I had as a child, I've turned into a TV show. It's called Pack in Time. I sift out, here's very important, I sift out all the Hall of Famers and current big leaguers. We give them plenty of love on MLB Network, okay? These are all the other guys. And I pull 3 cards, tell you everything I know. We've got great file footage of every player that's ever played in the big leagues, okay? And then the third card, whoever I pull, I'm going to do a live interview with that guy. So coming up this weekend, guess who the third card was I pulled? And I was so stoked to pull this card. Andy Van Slyke.
Oh,
so
nice.
Andy Van Slyke will join me this Sunday on Pack in Time. It's a fun show. You gotta watch it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Now, as we talk about this current Cardinals group, Chaim Bloom traded Sonny Gray, right? He traded Nolan Arenado. He traded Wilson Contreras. But does the award for most important offseason move go to hiring Yadi?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I don't know if it's the most important move. I still think the most important move is getting Nolan Arenado into a different environment for Nolan, but also for the St. Louis Cardinals. The aftermath of keeping Nolan on the roster was going to affect so many other spokes in the ladder for the Cardinals roster. So that was massively important. And then the awkward distraction and the vibe. It was so important to get him off the roster. So I do love Yadi in this specific role. I got to be honest with you. Wasn't a huge fan of Yadi wearing the uniform in the dugout. I just, my son plays varsity basketball and they have co-head coaches. I think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard or seen. And as I watched the varsity basketball team continue to be coached, they take a quarter off. And there are two guys as pretending to be head coaches. You gotta have one voice, man. When Yadi was over the shoulder of Ali Marmol, I just think it sucks a little bit of the power away from Ali. And if you want this guy to show you everything he's got as a manager, you can't have this Cardinal Hall of Famer who openly says he wants to manage someday in the dugout. I just don't think that's appropriate. So having him with Chaim Bloom and having Chaim have this incredible instinctual player sitting next to him, I think that is a better role to make everyone live up to their potential, whatever role they're in. So I think it's good for Ali Marmol that Yadi's more of a front office voice instead of in the dugout.
And Greg, if Yadi is at spring training for 3 days and he comes to St. Louis for 3 weekends a year, or is with the Cardinals for 3 weekends a year, how much can he really help?
Well, if you think about what spot does this organization have the most depth in, you could say catcher, right? It's got to be top 2. And to see how the young catchers are growing, to see how certain players maybe aren't making the right in-game decisions. Yadi's one of the greatest in-game decision makers, right? His eye for pitching talent, I think, needs to be recognized. He can parachute in.
But I think the key, Greg, will be parachuting into Memphis to work with Leonardo Bernal, to parachute into Springfield to work with Reinel Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the play rather than him just being a celebrity coach in the dugout. Here in St. Louis.
No doubt. Helping but I also think, the laundry list of young pitchers in the organization and sequencing and when to set up hitters and, framing, all the good stuff that Yadi was known for, controlling the running game. Ivan Herrera needs to prove, if he's going to get a chance to catch, that he can throw people out. There are little ways. I mean, was anybody better at back picking at first base than Yadi or Molina? Now that was before these new rules, the bigger bases and all that stuff, how many times you could throw over. That has been the new weapon to control the running game. Catchers throwing, back picking, they can do that as many times as they want. A pitcher can't step off as many times as he wants anymore. That is a new weapon. No one was better than Yadi or Molina. So communication with first baseman, all that kind of stuff. So I do think he could parachute in and really make a bigger impact than people think.
So, Greg, you made me laugh at the Lindenwood event when you caught Chaim Bloom looking down at his phone a couple of times, and you said, hey, did you just trade Brendan Donovan? And he kind of, shrugged it off. He said he was texting his wife. I don't know if that means I was texting the Seattle Mariners when I say I'm texting my wife, but maybe it was not. I want to know, though, do you think if Brendan Donovan will be a Cardinal on opening day?
I do not think he'll be a Cardinal on opening day. And I promise you he was texting his wife because his wife arrived in St. Louis. And I was very stressed out about this because he was supposed to pick his family up from the airport, Lambert International Airport, but because he was at Lindenwood, he couldn't do that. So we got a car service, everything set up for the Bloom family when they arrived. So when he said it was his wife, I was really fingers crossed that everything was going smoothly, okay? I was rooting for the Bloom family to smoothly get home. And they did, by the way. But I do think Brendan Donovan does get traded before opening day. And the reason I say that is his value will never be higher than it is right now. To let him take a single swing in spring training, to let him potentially pull a hamstring in spring training would not be the play. So I do think there's a countdown clock before spring training for the Cardinals to move a guy that will never be more valuable than he is right now. So I just don't see a world in which Brendan Donovan is wearing that uniform again.
Greg, on Wednesday night, the Mets get Freddie Peralta to lead their rotation. They get him from Milwaukee. How does this change the Central Division because of the Cubs loading up and the East Division races?
Well, I heard what you said about the New York Mets, and this was a very big play. It was either Skubal or Peralta. They were trying to get one of the two, and to me, it sounds like the Skubal asking price is so astronomically high, which it should be. He's won 2 straight Cy Youngs. They decided to pivot over to Freddie Peralta. They paid a hefty price, 2 terrific young prospects. But, I'm not seeing the improvement for the New York Mets that other people are seeing. I don't think Devin Williams is an upgrade from Edwin Diaz. I don't think Jorge Polanco at first base, why first base, is an upgrade over Pete Alonso. I don't know if Freddie Peralta is going to be the what they believe Pedro Martinez was going to be when he signed with the New York Mets. He's going to be the clear-cut ace, as great as he was with the Milwaukee Brewers. Pressure cooker time now when you're pitching in the market of New York. The off-the-field stuff, the chemistry issues, Lindor and Soto are going to have to talk about that day one of spring training. I still think there's depth issues. If you're saying Sean Manaea is a solid number 3, I'm a bit worried about that. Jonah Tong, loved the kid, but then after his first start, an ERA over 9. So I don't know. Maybe he is the next Tim Lincecum. There's just a lot of question marks there. The Brandon Nimmo guy was a big deal for them, always in a positive mood. Now you replace him with Luis Robert, and you're wondering, wait a minute, is Luis Robert still a consistent, effective big leaguer? There's a lot of questions. I'm more worried about the New York Mets than fired up for the New York Mets. As for the Brewers, the last time I felt bad for the Brewers was when they parted ways with Corbin Burns, and all they did was go to the playoffs the next year. You cannot feel bad. It's like playing golf with my son. My son is a terrific golfer. If he bogeys the first 2 holes and I par the first 2 holes and he starts to whimper, I have to remind myself, go for blood. Do not feel bad for him because he will birdie the next 5 holes and I'll double bogey the next 5 holes. So I don't feel bad for the Brewers. They're still going to be the favorite in many eyes to win the division, even without their ace once again.
Greg, I saw John Morosi tweet about this, and I'm like, oh, yeah, how is this guy still available? And I know you like him, too. Why has no team signed Luis Arraez yet?
Well, because of all the things that modern baseball analytics cares about. What I would invite them to do is look at the whiff rate and strikeout percentage of the San Diego Padres the season before Luis Arraez showed up. Luis Arraez does one thing better than any player in the big leagues. What I'm about to say, used to be an accolade of JD Martinez. When JD Martinez was in the big leagues and he didn't really ceremoniously retire, no one just valued him anymore, even though that was ridiculous. Ask Mookie Betts what JD Martinez did for him. What did JD Martinez used to do more than any other player? Talk hitting. He talked hitting. Now, that doesn't show up in a spreadsheet, doesn't show up analytical data, how that impacts anybody. But the San Diego Padres became a force when they cut down their strikeouts. And Luis Arraez would walk up to guys in the dugout going, why are you throwing an A-hack on a 1-2 pitch? Why are you swinging like it's 3-1 when you're in the hole 1-2? It affected everyone in the lineup. Luis Arraez is a great hitter. Now, he was in a walk year. I think he got bad advice from his representation, trying to improve his slugging percentage. You are what you are, bro. Try to win a 4th straight batting title. Instead, he hit under 290, and he still wasn't slugging. He's never going to be a 20-homer guy, all right? Unfortunately, our game doesn't even value somebody that has 3 batting titles. And may I remind you, if he does win a 4th, he's pretty much ensured that he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Look at guys that have won 4 batting titles that are not in the Hall of Fame. Good luck with that. So you've got a unique bat-to-ball skill talent that no one values in modern baseball, which I think is trash when you consider what is the stepping stone of a team that wants to win the World Series. They cut down their strikeouts. The team that has the hardest to strike out usually wins the World Series. Luis Arraez brings that not just in his own bat, but in his IQ that permeates through everyone going to the bat rack in your dugout. So I have said the Cardinals should go get Luis Arraez. You want to see Jordan Walker make more contact? You want to see Nolan Gorman make more contact? You want to see all these guys that have high upside touch the baseball more? Go get Luis Arraez. He's like the hit doctor on your own team. I would love to see it right now. You can get it for a bargain price.
Hey, Greg, before we let you go, great job on MLB Network's coverage of the Hall of Fame. Beltran goes in, and also going in, Andrew Jones. Does an Eras committee need to take a closer look at Jim Edmonds with those 2 center fielders into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I mean, first time ever we had 2 center fielders inducted into one class. Before the other day, we had 8 total center fielders. Now, we all played Little League, right? So the guy that was fearless, the toughest kid, he was the catcher. The best overall player in the team, he was the shortstop. The fastest kid, who could probably hit the ball farther than anybody, was the center fielder. That's how it always worked. But yet, here we get to the Hall of Fame, and we don't care that Torrey Hunter has 9 gold gloves. We don't care. Jim Edmonds, as great of a defensive center fielder as you'll ever see, multiple seasons of over 40 home runs, it's not his fault. He played on teams with other Hall of Famers. I really honestly think that that's what hurt Andrew Jones. Obviously, he had the domestic violence incident in 2014. But when you look at the great run of the Atlanta Braves, it's Hall of Famer Sherholtz, who's the architect of it, Bobby Cox, Hall of Fame manager. Then you have your three pitchers, right? Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz. Then you got Shipper. Then you got Fred McGriff just got into the Hall of Fame. Oh, yeah. Andrew Jones with 10 straight Gold Gloves. When you're like the last Hall of Famer that people think about, for some reason that hurts your branding. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. It's ridiculous. And but people mention the fact that Jim Edmonds, I don't know if he did it long enough. Timeout. We got to stop doing that. We got to stop doing that. Look at Andrew Jones after the age of 30, dropped off. I know he broke into the big leagues at the age of 19, but it's not just Jim Edmonds. We need more center field love. Kenny Lofton needs to be looked at all over again. Bernie Williams needs to be looked at all over again. There are center fielders that deserve more attention because it's a premium defensive position.
You're always the best. Thank you so much. We'll be watching Pack in Time on Sundays on MLB Network, and we always love having you here. You guys are the best. Also tune in Friday night. Top 100 Prospects Countdown. It's like a midterm exam. So I'm doing that in about 10 minutes, all right? Okay.
Can't wait.
See you, brother. Love you. Take care. It's Greg Amsinger. We're live with him every week, and he is sponsored by St. Luke's. Top-notch doctors in everything from heart health, orthopedics, and more. Visit stlukes-stl.com today. Coming up in the list, the most impactful injuries that we've seen in football. That's next in The Fight. All right, it's time for the list, and we've seen so many season-ending ACL injuries pop up this season in the NFL. The NBA has seen the losses of Jimmy Butler and Bradley Beal and Jason Tatum and more. The injury bug has hit our favorite sports teams hard, some harder than others. With that, we give you the most impactful injuries that changed a team's fortunes across sports. And I'm going to start with my number 3, and if it wasn't for this injury, maybe the Blues wouldn't have had to wait until 2019 to win their first Stanley Cup. In his first year with the Blues, goalie Grant Fuhr played in a record 79 games and posted a 2.87 goals against average and a .903 save percentage. And in February of that season, the Blues added the greatest player ever, Wayne Gretzky, to a roster that included future Hall of Famers Fuhr, Al McInnes, Chris Pronger, Brett Hull, Glenn Anderson, Dale Hawerchuk, and Asa Tikkanen. And all was going well in Game 2 of the playoffs against Toronto until Toronto's Nick Kypreos ran into Fuhr's knee. Now, you can blame Prongs for running into Kypreos, but I think Prongs was completely absolved and absolvable of blame here. I think Kypreos was running Grant Fuhr, and Fuhr was done for the playoffs with a torn ACL. A yeoman effort from John Casey. The Blues eliminated the Leafs, but in the second round, with Casey still playing well, Steve Yzerman beat him with a laser over his left shoulder, and the Wings won the series in double overtime of Game 7, 1-0. Detroit would lose to eventual Cup champion Colorado in the conference finals, and the Blues would lose because of Fuhr's knee injury. I'm convinced that if Grant Fuhr doesn't get hurt because he's run by Nick Kypreos there, the Blues win that year's Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at who was on the roster. I just think it's stupid, the names that the Blues had, and it's crazy how the one constant can cause defeat in this case, and that constant was Grant Fuhr. And if you can't replace the constant perfectly, then you will have a situation arise where somebody else's best players can get the best of you.
No doubt about it.
All right, my number 3, it's kind of a similar line of thinking here. 2015 was a great year for the Cardinals. Looking back, it was awesome. They had a 100-win season and a real shot at chasing another World Series. But April wasn't a kind month. On the 25th, Wainwright ruptured his Achilles batting, of all things. Batting, running out of the batter's box, and basically missed the remainder of the season. I say basically because if you remember, he came back in September, surprisingly. And I say surprisingly because you're not supposed to recover in 9 months from that injury. And here's why this injury changed the course of the franchise. Waino was already entrenched as the #1 starter. He was coming off 2 straight top 3 Cy Young finishes and was the anchor of a team with a clear World Series expectation. And when the team needed him the most, there was no true ace to hand the ball to in a must-win NLDS game against the Cubs. That's where his absence was felt the most. And the Cardinals went on to miss the playoffs for 3 straight seasons to no fault of Wainwright. I just think the situation changed the trajectory of the franchise more than we realized at the time.
Yeah, and when you look at the way that team performed, you got such great work out of Waka, out of Lynn, out of Carlos Martinez, out of Lackey, out of Garcia. But down the stretch, Waka got hurt, Lynn got hurt, ultimately needed Tommy John surgery, and you could have used Waino. And oh, by the way, both Waino and Mike Matheny told me that if the Cardinals would have won the next game against Chicago, they would have had a Game 5. Waino had talked his way into starting Game 5 in 2015.
And that would have mattered because it goes back to when you need that one constant, like I talked about with Fior. You had that in Waino. If you needed that for one game, you got it with those two guys, but they didn't get that far.
All right, talk about impacting a team. March 24th of 2001, it's a spring training, a meaningless dog days of spring training game in Florida. And Bobby Bonilla, the Cardinals' presumptive opening day left fielder, strains a hamstring running out a ball to first base. Bonilla had to be placed on the DL, and well, Albert Pujols happened. Albert that year hit .329 with 37 home runs, 130 RBIs, and an OPS of 1.013. His OPS plus was 57% better than the average major league hitter. And he won Rookie of the Year and started the greatest 10-year run to start a career in big league history. Talk about an impactful injury. By the way, Bonilla hit .213 with a .647 OPS and 174 at-bats in his only season with the Cardinals. It wasn't a season ender for Bobby Bonilla, but it sure impacted the Cardinals that year and in the future.
Yeah, talk about teams' fortunes for the better, right? The first two we give, it was such a strong impact on the team losing a big moment. This one was, hey, you found something that you really didn't know you were getting at Albert Pujols. Although Albert, I don't think he's getting paid still, and Bobby Bonilla is.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, Albert's getting paid by the Angels.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. But Bobby Bonilla, how long does he get paid for?
I think he's got 4 or 5 more years.
Isn't that insane?
Pretty amazing.
All right, my number 2. Carey Price, Randy, kind of like Grant Fior, was knocked out of the playoffs. And I remember when he was the best goalie in the league. And this moment still frustrates me because it felt like the entire series and maybe the Canadiens' best shot ended in one chaotic play. Worse than maybe your number 3. Carey Price was at his absolute peak and at, the 2013-14 season, the backbone of Montreal, and this is just what happened. I got to show you the clip. Chris Kreider comes flying in and just bulldozes Carey Price. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, everything changes. Price tried to gut it out, but you could tell something was wrong, and once he was done for the series, so were the Canadiens' chances. You go from a Vezina-level goalie who could steal you games to scrambling with backups while the Rangers start firing pucks with confidence, and suddenly the math doesn't work anymore. Montreal fought, but losing Price wasn't just losing a goalie, it was losing the identity of the team. And if you want to know how hard the series swung, just look at the goals for once Price was out. The Rangers averaged 3.33 goals a game after Price was kicked out of the playoffs.
Interesting how that happens in the playoffs. We mentioned Fior, Price, Jordan Binnington, when Nazem Kadri got him in the series against Colorado a few years ago. Interesting how goalies get run into and suffer injuries in the playoffs, isn't it?
Yeah. Why is that?
Wonder why. All right, my number 1 is incredibly obvious. August 29th, 1999, the St. Louis Rams and the Chargers in the preseason, and Rodney Harrison rolls up on the knee of quarterback Trent Green. Ouch. Now, Trent was 28 of 32 in this preseason. Hadn't thrown an interception. He'd thrown 4 touchdown passes. There was a throw to the rookie. But on this play, Harrison rolls up on the knee of Green, and the knee was completely destroyed. Out for the year, torn MCL, torn ACL, cartilage damage as well. Just an awful night. One of the worst nights of my life, and you can see Trent there. He knew that he was hurt. The next day, Dick Vermeil.
Not going to use Trent Green as an excuse for losing. We will rally around Kurt Warner, and we'll play good football.
And of course, Warner would lead the Rams to a victory in Super Bowl 34. There was the 4-touchdown day to Azakim. This, of course, the incredible performance against the Giants here in St. Louis, and Isaac Bruce had 4 touchdowns in a day against the San Francisco 49ers. And Marshall with the best run I've ever seen. the Rams would win the Super Bowl. They do it without Trent Green. But, man, I and everybody else thought, because we didn't know what Kurt Warner was, that night that Trent Green went down, that it was the worst injury ever. And it did impact the Rams because pretty much everybody on that team says, yeah, we won the Super Bowl, but we would have won it with Trent too.
Right.
And
yeah.
by the way, if Trent Green, who went to Vianney, one of the all-time great St. Louisans, if a hometown guy quarterbacks his hometown team to the Super Bowl, how big of a star is he in St. Louis?
Well, we know what David Freese did, right? And so Trent Green would have just been the David Freese before David Freese.
And Pat Maroon.
And think about this, Trent Green went to Indiana. How about his Monday night, right? Watching the Hoosiers win the national championship. It's funny how this went from worst day for you to best day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love Trent Green is a great friend, and I still hurt for him because he really wanted that badly.
And he would have had it, right?
Yeah.
Just like you said, the Rams would have won the Super Bowl with Trent Green. That's what everybody says. He would have been Kurt Warner, but Kurt Warner's story is now what everybody remembers.
And by the way, I'm glad Kurt's awesome too, and I was glad to see him have the magical career that he had.
Hey, they both have Super Bowl rings.
Yep.
My number one. The fan in me would choose Derrick Rose here. It also makes the most sense. But what I saw last season on the hardwood, Randy, has me thinking more about the Pacers than myself. It's Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and Tyrese Halliburton has clearly been the best player over the 7-game series. And nobody gave the Pacers a shot to compete with the heavily favored Thunder. And without Halliburton, the books would have been right. Playing on a strained calf, he had it in Game 5. We all wondered about his overall health the rest of the series. But dude's a competitor and knew the stakes. He played through it, and it cost him. And it cost the Pacers. 7 minutes in, the red-hot Tyrese Halliburton saw his calf give out. And you'll see it in slow motion here in a sec. He tore his Achilles. And it was such a terrible blow for the Indy crowd as OKC went on to win the series and hoist the trophy. And it just goes to the laundry list of seasons for the Pacers of getting to the finals, but not being able to close.
And OKC takes advantage and
right there.
Wins it all. All right, that is the list. And coming up, we're going to build a little parlay for you here in the fight. Hey, I want you to know about our friends at St. Luke's and what's going on there. You know, we're getting to that time of year, Valentine's Day, the day of the heart, where I had my heart issue back in 2012. And I went to St. Luke's, and the doctors there couldn't have been better for me. I was so amazed by the way that they went through the process, from their bedside manner, telling me that I had to have the surgery, to preparing me and telling me what it was going to entail, to the day that I actually had the surgery. And then my rehab was sensational. I had no idea what I was in for, but St. Luke's prepared me for it, and they will prepare you as well. If in this cold weather you're suffering any chest pains whatsoever, don't take a chance. Get in touch with my friends at St. Luke's. Their Heart and Vascular Center is the best in St. Louis. They have a great relationship with the Cleveland Heart Clinic, and they know more about hearts than anybody. If you have any issues at all with your heart, get in touch with St. Luke's. It's easy to find them on the web. You can also give them a call, 314-205-6801, or find them at stlukes-stl.com. All right, we are going to build a parlay on this championship game weekend in the NFL. And Andrew, you saw the very first Rams-Seahawks game this year, right?
I did.
Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions. You saw their second game, right?
That I did.
Sam Darnold threw 2 interceptions. You saw last week the Rams against the Bears, right?
I did.
A couple of more interceptions for that Rams defense.
Ones I want to forget.
That really does set up. I think this is kind of a trend here. And we've got the over-under for Sam Darnold. Oh, look at that. 1 plus interception, minus 156. 2 plus interceptions, though. Let's move it over. Plus 292. It's almost a lock, right? The Rams are gonna pick off Darnold twice, at least.
Holy cow.
That's what I'm going with. The plus 2 interceptions for Sam Darnold of the Seahawks.
I love the value of that play, and I also love consistency. And you're playing the consistent number
It's
here.
a trend. We look at trends, don't we?
And we gamble a ton.
Like 92-84 basketball.
Yeah, we just went off averages, though.
Yeah.
Okay, this one intrigues me, Randy, because the over-under opened up for the Broncos-Patriots game at 40.5. And a
Wow,
lot of people put a lot of money on that over. And so it kept going up because they're wanting to stop you from putting money on the over. Yet the over is still the favorite here. I think I'm going to play against it. The under is going to be the move. Jarrett Stidham is not a good quarterback. The Broncos might only put up 3 points in this game, and the Patriots might win 27-3.
And there you're under, right?
Way under by 12 points there.
All right, well, let's take a look at this. We've got a championship parlay here with Darnold throwing 2 picks and the Patriots and Broncos going under, and we're going to put $100 on it.
And I'm going to do math for you because it won't load. So here we go. 654 is our money to take home.
All right, there we go. And that is building a parlay here in the fight. Coming up, we've got our Take It or Leave It. We've got Story Time with Uncle Randy. Plus, we've got Today in Sports History here in the fight. It is time now for Take It or Leave It here in the fight. And Andrew, USA Today gave grades to every college football program for 2025. And while LSU and Clemson got D- for going 7-6, Mizzou got a B- for going 8-5. So, take it or leave it. The fact that you can win one more game and be 2 letter grades better is part of why Mizzou is such a good coaching job.
I would take that. I really like that grade that Mizzou was given because I think it was factored in all of the injuries that Mizzou had to overcome this season, and still getting to 8 wins was a great record for Drink.
I like low expectations. I like people to have low expectations of me. That way I don't have to work as hard. So, yeah, I'm going to take it too.
I love the line of thinking. Okay, mine for you, Randy, is this. Ice hockey documentary, Miracle, the Boys of 80, is coming to Netflix on January 30th of this year. This will definitely get the juices flowing pre-Olympics, right? And Mike Eruzione said this is the best documentary/movie made yet. And he said it was better than Miracle.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and that was according to Dallas Stars beat writer Sam Nessler, who must have talked to Mike Eruzione. Take it or leave it, Randy. Director Tyler will reluctantly purchase Netflix just to watch this when it drops.
This is a 100%er. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Check, check, check. Tyler loves the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team.
He loves the Miracle on Ice. What's funny about this, too, is we also know Tyler is a man of principle, and he likes what he likes. And knowing that he has to splurge here to watch this, I'm taking it, too.
He wants to borrow money, and you're in, yes. All right, so that's Take It or Leave It here in the fight. By the way, you're going to watch this a little later, and you can find it on YouTube. The HBO documentary, Miracle, is sensational. It's they did such a good job.
The
the hour-long documentary that they did on that team is great. All right, we're doing Story Time with Uncle Randy, and we're going to do something from the 2010s, which is always a fun decade to do. And let's see what kind of sport we get. It looks like we're going to do some 2010s hockey, huh?
Let's keep it going.
2010s hockey. I'll tell you one of the most impressive things I ever saw was when in 2012, November of 2012, your St. Louis Blues fired Davis Payne as their head coach. And I had read and heard a lot about Ken Hitchcock, but I found Ken Hitchcock to be so impressive. And I think he might be my favorite Blues coach ever, just because of the way he taught hockey. He said at that press conference that he had a different eye for hockey. He recognized that he saw hockey in a different way than everybody else did. And he also, even though he didn't say it publicly, he wanted to galvanize his team, and he galvanized his team against him. And almost immediately, the Blues turned great. They had a 109-point season after getting off to a horrible start, and it was because Ken Hitchcock is one of the best coaches in the history of the National Hockey League. Not only did he get his team to play better, but players played better under him as well. And that was one of the great moves the Blues ever made, taking nothing away from Davis Payne. He just wasn't ready to be an NHL head coach at that time. And John Davidson knew Ken Hitchcock. Of course, Doug Armstrong knew Ken Hitchcock. They were together when they were in Dallas together and won a Stanley Cup. And Hitch did a magnificent job. He really did set the stage, ultimately, for the Blues winning the Stanley Cup in 2019.
I agree that Hitch is one of the best coaches in Blues history. I think Davis Payne is a name that everybody just forgets, right? Everybody forgets Payne's name. But I think I'm blinded by Chief in terms of best coach ever in Blues history, just because he delivered the cup.
Chief had followed Hitchcock in Philadelphia. And actually, Hitch was a mentor for Craig Berube when Berube was there in Philly. He was an assistant to Hitchcock. Hitchcock laid the groundwork for that Stanley Cup. Make no mistake about it. And he needed a goalie. If he would have had a goalie here, if he would have had what Jordan Binnington delivered in 2019, he would have won a Stanley Cup for the Blues in 2016.
If the Blues keep Joel Quenneville instead of firing him, does he win the first Stanley Cup for the Blues?
Still need to get a goalie. Yeah, and that was a problem for 50 years. The Blues just didn't have that goaltender that came up big at playoff time. All right, that's story time with Uncle Randy, and now it's time for this date in sports history. This is 1960. In an unusual request, Stan Musial tells the Cardinals management that he is overpaid and should have his salary reduced after a subpar 1959 season. Stan the Man receives a pay cut from $100,000 to $80,000 a year because he asked for it. This is a guy that wound up with 3,630 hits. He was one of the great players of all time, clearly the best Cardinal of all time. But if you look at his numbers, he's top 5 in pretty much every offensive category in the history of the sport, and except for home runs. He had 475 home runs. He was unbelievable. And for him to ask for a pay cut, and then for Gussie Busch to allow him to take a pay cut is absolutely amazing.
I'll say this, it shows exactly where his head was at. His head was, I know that I can't disrespect the game of baseball with my poor play one season, because he held himself to such a high standard that he was willing to do that. That's what just separated him from every other great in baseball.
He, one time at a writer's dinner, got up to the podium and he was laughing. He always laughed and always played his harmonica. And he said, somebody asked me one time why I'm so happy all the time. And I said, well, you'd be happy too if you got out of bed every morning knowing that you were going to hit 330. It's true. Hit 331 for his career, and not only one of the all-time great players in St. Louis, the best all-time baseball player. All due respect to Albert Pujols, but one of the great people in the history of St. Louis too.
I'm
Stan the
happy you
Man
ended
was
with that.
as nice a person as you could ever run across.
The all-around person in baseball.
Yeah, he was phenomenal, and that tells you everything you need to know right there. That on this date in 1960, he asked for a pay cut rather than a raise or a static salary.
It makes me like him even more.
Yeah, I have never asked for a pay cut, not once.
I can't imagine anybody today would want to ask for a pay cut.
Yeah, players don't take pay cuts now. It's pretty amazing. Hey, we've got a lot coming up for you as we head towards the Super Bowl and beyond, and we want you to be part of the fight. We're on at 5 o'clock and 10 p.m. and again at 7 a.m. weekdays. And don't forget, Friday mornings at 2 a.m. for all of you that are out and about on a Friday morning. Hey,
Go get your Racing Canes and come home and watch us.
Watch us on First Alert 4 at 2 o'clock in the morning on Fridays. Of course, we're always available on the Matrix Midwest app and the KMOV app, plus your favorite podcast platform. You can find the podcast at that Matrix Midwest app, and you can sign up to face me in Trivia in the Fight. Just go to matrixmidwest.com, find the Fight with Carricker and Company in the drop-down, and fill that baby out, and then this guy, Andrew, will get in touch with you about participating in the fight.
Absolutely. Somebody's got to take this away from him.
At some point. I got a good winning streak going. Hey,
so good.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our buddy Greg Amsinger, for Andrew Rogers and our director Tyler Klaus. I'm Randy Carricker, and we will see you next time in the fight. Have a great weekend, everybody.